Okay, so good day ulit, guys. So itutuloy lang natin yung discussion natin about our topic, limits. So, proceed na tayo dito sa Theorem 6, and previously we discussed about the limits theorems, Theorem 1 up to 6. So, dito naman sa sa Theorem 6 natin, we have the division theorem. This says that the limit of a quotient function is equivalent or equal to the quotient of the limits of the individual functions, provided the denominator limit is now equivalent to 0. So, our division theorem. So, ito rin kanina yung natin, board natin kanina. So, itutuloy ko lang siya dito. So, we have the Theorem 6. Theorem number 6. And the division theorem. Okay, so mapapansin nyo, medyo paulit-ulit ako sa title ng Theorem 6 natin or names ng theorems natin para hindi nyo makalimutan. So, Theorem 6. So, we have the limit of f of x over g of x as x approaches a. So, equivalent to the limit of f of x as x approaches a over the limit of g of x as x approaches a. So, kung mapapansin nyo, yung f of x over g of x natin, division na yan, since naka-over na. Then, sineparate lang natin siya dito sa kabila, sa right side, para ilagay natin individually yung equivalent limit nila. So, limit and limit. So, always, yung limit natin ng x as approaches a is nasa ilalim ni lim. So, lim muna, and then yung x approaches a. And then yung function natin. So, equivalent to L over M. Provided that M is not equal to 0. Ayan. So, consider daw tong Theorem 6, which is division theorem, kapag yung M natin is not equivalent to 0. So, it should be greater than 1. Ayan. So, itong L natin, dininote lang natin na L, yung f of x, limit ng f of x, and M, yung limit ng g of x. Katulad na ginawa natin sa previous theorems ng limits. Okay. Proceed tayo sa example. So, examples, letter A ng Theorem 6. So, individual examples will have a different values for limit of f of x and limit of g of x. Para hindi naman parating pare-pareho yung values ng functions natin. So, if the limit of f of x is equivalent to 4 as x approaches a, and limit of g of x as x approaches a is equivalent to negative 5. Negative 5 yan. Negative 5. So, gagamitin natin na yung formula ng Theorem 6, which is yung limit of f of x over g of x as x approaches a, equivalent to limit of f of x as x. Mali yung nasulat ko. Dapat hindi yan underline. As x approaches a divided by limit of g of x as x approaches a. So, ibig sabihin yan, itong value ng f of x and g of x, i-substitute lang natin dyan. So, magiging ano na tayo sa 20 slides. So, magti-20 slides na. So, papanibagong slide tayo. Ayan, panibagong slide. So, ito, continue ng example, equivalent to 4 divided by negative 5. So, yung value ng f of x natin is 4 and value ng g of x natin is equivalent to negative 5. So, equivalent to, so simplify lang natin kasi yung negative natin andito sa 5. So, ito, pwede na natin ilagay sa gitna ng fraction natin, which is negative 4 over 5. Yan na yung final answer natin. Okay? So, ito, i-rename lang natin para di tayo malito. So, calculus 1. Module 2. Okay. Next example. Next example is letter B. So, yung given natin, katulad ng sinabi ko kanina, iba na yung value ng f of x natin if the limit of f of x is equivalent to 0 as x approaches a. So, iba na yung value ng f of x natin, ha? And limit of g of x as x approaches a is equivalent to negative 5. So, ditong negative 5 lang. Kumbaga, yung f of x natin, which is yung magiging numerator natin, yun yung 0. Okay? So, using the formula ulit, equals limit of f of x as x approaches a divided by limit of g of x as x approaches a. Yan. So, ano magiging value natin? So, 0. F of x natin, 0. Divided by g of x, which is negative 5. So, equivalent to 0. So, sabi nga ko nga kanina sa statement natin dyan, pwedeng mag-0 ang numerator. But, if yung m na, or denominator na ang 0, of course, hindi na ma-qualify si Theorem 6 sa limit natin. Okay? 0 na yan. Final answer. Okay. So, what if, another example, letter C. Last example for the Theorem 6. If the limit of f of x as x approaches a is equivalent to 4, and the limit of g of x as x approaches a is equivalent to 0. So, ito na. Tignan natin kung ano magiging kalalabasan. Okay? So, gagamitin ulit natin yung ganito na formula. So, ibig sabihin, equivalent lang yan sa 4 divided by 0. So, ika-calculator natin. Hanap tayo ng online calculator. Bakit ba hindi pwede yan? Okay, so nakikita nyo ngayon, nag-input ako sa browser natin. Kasi, maghanap tayo ng online calculator. Palalabasin natin yung sagot na yan. Ito, scientific calculator natin. So, ano yung value natin? 4 divided by 0 equals Okay. Sabi dyan, infinity. Yan yung sinabi ng calculator na yan. Pero kapag dito, ayan, sa scientific calculator natin, ang lalabas dyan, i-input ko, 4 divided by 0 is equivalent to, kita nyo ba? Math error. So, sa scientific calculator, any number divided by 0 is math error or infinity. Okay. Kaya, yung ano natin, yung Theorem 6 is hindi qualify yung denominator as equivalent to 0. Okay? So, itong letter C natin does not exist. Does not exist. So, cannot be evaluated by limits or the division theorem limit. Next, Theorem 7. Theorem number 7. Anong sabi ng Theorem number 7 natin? O, yan. So, naka-state dyan. Siya yung power theorem. So, this theorem states that the limit of an integer p of a function is just the power of the limit of the function. So, iyan yung mathematical notation ng theorem number 7 natin. So, sulat natin sa board. The power theorem. The power theorem. Okay. So, our formula or the mathematical notation, limit of f of x. Okay, lagyan natin ng bracket para sa exponent, which is yung p or yung power, as x approaches a is equivalent to the limit of f of x. So, di ba kanina may value tayo ng limit ng f of x natin as x approaches a. Then, ipapower natin yan. Or exponent. Yan. Sinimplify natin para maintindihan. Equals, so, itong limit of f of x as x approaches a, i-denote natin siya as letter L. And then, ilalagay na natin yung exponent, which is yung p. O, so, di ba, ang simple, parang yung limit natin naging L raised to p. Wherein yung L natin, yan yung limit ng function natin. And then, itong p, ito yung exponent. So, ibig sabihin, yung limit ng function natin, i-exponent lang natin. Or i-multiply natin, depende sa power na andyan, na nakalagay. Depende sa value ng power natin. So, magkakaroon tayo ng example para mas maintindihan. So, example. Examples. Letter A. If the limit of f of x as x approaches a is equivalent to 4, then, anong susunod na step? Di ba? F of x is equivalent to 4. Ano yung power natin? Wherein if p is equivalent to 3. So, solution. Limit of f of x raised to 3 as x approaches a equals. So, itong ano dito, nilimit lang natin. Equate natin yung value ng limit natin siya sa 4. So, ganyan. If ganyan, so limit of f of x as x approaches a. Then, i-raise natin siya sa 3. So, ibig sabihin lang yan, Ano tong limit natin? 4, di ba? So, 4 raised to 3. So, equivalent lang yan sa 4 times 4 times 4. Equivalent to, calculator, 4 times 4 times 4. So, we have 64. Ayan. Kinalculator ko, baka magtaka kasi kayo pag ano eh. Kaya, yan. 64. Yan na yung final answer sa letter A. Next. We have letter B. So, if the limit of f of x as x approaches A is equivalent to 4 again, then, using this equation, or the limit of f of x raised to negative 2 as x approaches A is equivalent to what? So, yung limit ulit natin, gagamitin natin. So, every time na magsosolve kayo ng ganito, dapat kompleto yung solution natin. So, lagi yung isusulat yan. Huwag kulang. Kailangan kompleto ang solution natin para mas maintindihan. So, lagyan natin ng brace. Negative 2. So, ano yung value nito? Andito sa taas, which is 4. And then, i-raise to negative 2 natin siya. So, ano magiging sagot dyan? So, pag negative yan, pwede nyo siyang ibaba. So, 1 over 4 squared. Para maging positive ito. Para mas madali nating i-simplify or makuha yung value niya. So, 1 over 4 squared is equivalent to 1 over 16. So, yan na yung final answer natin. O baka magtaka ulit kayo, bakit natin ibinaba yung 4 raised to negative 2? O, basic mathematics. So, balikan nyo na lang yung algebra ninyo. Yan yung final answer. Kasi kapag ganyan, of course, parang maku-curious ka. Maku-confuse ka, paano kaya natin yan makukuha? Diba? Kaya ginamitan natin siya ng ganito. Kumbaga, reciprocal. Reciprocal niya. Next. Letter C. Last example for Theorem 6. Wag naman nating gawin naman nating medyo komplikado. Though hindi naman ganoon ka-komplikado pero yung parang malilito ka ba. So yung f of x papalitan natin. If h of w is equivalent to, wait, may kulang. If the limit of hw as z approaches t. Sige nga. Yan. So, parang inibahan ko lang yung mga variables natin. So, if the limit of h of w as z approaches t is equivalent to 10. Ayan. Yan yung value ng limit of h of w natin. So, then, the limit of h of w as z approaches t, ano exponent natin? Raised to negative 3. Ayan. So, paano natin yan? I-solve. So, limit of h of w as z approaches t. Brace raised to negative 3. So, Ano yung value natin ito? Natin dito sa limit na to. Value natin is equivalent to 10. And then, kunin natin yung exponent na negative 3. So, ano magiging sagot ulit dyan? Ibababa ulit natin. So, 1 over 10 raised to 3 is equivalent to, ibig sabihin yan, 10 times 10 times 10. Ilan yun? 10 times 10 times 10. 1,000. So, we have 1 over 1,000. Final answer. Okay. Malinaw? So, nilito ko kayo dyan. Gumawa ako ng panibagong variables. Yung H natin, yun yung F. Yung W natin, yun yung X. Okay? Then, Z. Yan. Edit natin. So, itong Z, di ba kung mapapansin nyo, nakakalito talaga siya. Kasi dapat yan, W din. W. O maski ako, medyo nalito rin. Pero ganun lang yan. So, ilang letters lang? Ilang letters? 3. H, W, and T. Kasi yung H natin, yun yung XF dito sa kabila. Yung W dito, yan yung X dito sa kabila. And then, yung T natin dito, yun yung A dito sa previous example. Ayan. Limit of H of W as W approaches T. Next, Theorem 8. Our last theorem. Theorem 8. Or the radical. The radical or root theorem. Ayan. So, anong sinasabi ng Theorem 8 natin? So, Theorem 8 or the radical root theorem states that if n is a positive number or integer, the limit of the nth root of a function is just the nth root of the limit of the function, provided the nth root of the limit is a real number. Thus, it is important to keep in mind that if n is 7, even, the limit of the function must be positive. Ayan. So, kapag even daw yung value ng n natin, dapat positive yung function natin. Okay. So, andyan yung formula natin or the mathematical notation. Sulat natin. So, mathematical notation, if the limit of nth root of f of x, nth root natin, yun yung n, andito. As x approaches a. So, itong n natin can be any real number. Naintindihan? Is equivalent to the limit of f of x as x approaches a. So, medyo may kulang sa module natin. Na module na nalagay ko. Dapat meron pang f of x dyan. F of x. So, ito siya. Is equivalent to nth root of L. So, dininote ulit natin yung limit ng f of x as x approaches a sa L. Okay? Okay, so sa radical sign kasi natin, radical sign, for example, square root of 4. So, automatic, since square root yan, 2 yung andito. 2 yan, square root. Pero pag square root kasi, kapag ganyan, ginagawa na lang nating square root of 4. Naintindihan? Ngayon naman, kapag cube root, so pag nilagay natin ganyan, square root yan. Gusto natin cube root. Kaya nilalagyan natin ng 3 dyan. So, ayan. Cube root. Cube root of 4. Naintindihan? So, yung 2 natin, yung n natin dito, n is equivalent to 2. And then, yung ito naman natin, ito, n natin is equivalent to 3. So, yan yung ibig sabihin ng nth root. So, infinity na yan. Kung hanggang anong number ang gusto nyong ilagay dyan sa nth root na yan. O paano kapag 100? O di 100 root. Yan yung value natin, n natin is 100. Okay? Next. Let's have an example. Okay, so patapos na tayo guys sa module 2. So, last theorem natin to. Example letter A. We have if the limit of f of x is equivalent as x approaches a is equivalent to 4. Then, our equation to solve, the limit of square root of f of x as x approaches a. Okay. So, assuming that ilalabas natin yung radical sign. So, radical sign nakalabas. And then, lalagay natin sa loob yung limit of f of x as x approaches a. So, ganito na lang yan. Masisimplify na lang natin as the square root of anong value ng limit of f of x as x approaches a natin. Equivalent to 4. Yun lang yun. 4. So, that means our final answer is equivalent to 2. Yan na yung final answer natin. Next, letter B. Letter B example. If the limit of f of x as x approaches a is equivalent to negative 4. Negative 4. Then, ano yung magiging sagot natin? Assuming that we're going to use the formula natin na radical and root theorem. So, dapat kapag ganyan, di ganito lang siya. The limit of square root, tama? Yung previous. Dapat ganyan. Limit of f of x as x approaches a. Tama? So, magiging equals, labas natin, limit of f of x as x approaches a. Equivalent to square root of negative 4. Meron ba tayong square root of negative 4? Ha? Wala. Diba? So, sabi dyan, it is not possible to evaluate our equation because it will become a square root of negative 4. And negative 4 is not a real number since our number has a negative sign. So, try natin i-calculator yan. Try nga natin i-calculator. Square root of negative 4. Tingnan natin kung may lalabas. Equals error. Diba? Error siya. Kasi nga, radical could be 0 or a positive number only. So, what if square root of 0? Tingnan natin. Square root of 0. 0. Diba? Pag square root of 0, 0. And then, square root of any positive number, let's say we have square root of 150 equals, meron pa rin siyang value. E paano kapag negative. Square root of negative 150. 15. Mali pala. Bakit 15 nalagay ko? Square root of negative 150 equals error pa din. Okay, so online calculator yan. Try naman natin siyang i-compute dito sa scientific calculator natin. So, square root of negative 4. Okay. Ayan. Math error. So, any number is square, any negative number is squared, and pag kinuha natin yung square root niya, error yan. Okay? So, only positive number or 0 ang pwedeng may square root. So, ito, not applicable. Does not exist ulit. D and E. Or, does not exist. So, ganun lang yung Theorem 8 natin. Okay? So, in general, summarize natin yung yung theorems natin. So, theorems. Theorems. So, theorem 1. Ano yung theorem 1 natin? Nakalagay dyan. Yan yung constant. Yung kinuha lang natin yung constant. Constant itself. So, yan yung kinuha lang natin. Kung ano yung value na andon na kukunin natin ang limit, yun din na magiging sagot. Kasi nga, constant siya. Next, theorem 2. Theorem 2, yan yung tinatawag nating substitution. Substitution law. Next, theorem 3. Ano yung theorem 3 natin? Ayan yung constant multiple. Constant multiple. Theorem 4, we have the addition. Addition. And of course, the subtraction. Include na natin dyan. And then the theorem 5, for theorems of limits, we have the multiplication. And next, our theorem 6. So, itong theorem 1 to 5, yan yung na-discuss natin sa ating first part of module. First part. Or first part ng video natin. Next, itong part 2, andyan yung theorem 6, which is yung division. Division theorem. Next, theorem 7, ayan yung power. The power theorem. And then, our last theorem, yan yung radical or root theorem. Ayan. Okay. Yan yung 8 theorems natin. So, hopefully, naintindihan nyo yung topic natin about limits. So, we have the definition. We define the limit. And we also discuss the 8 theorems of the limit. So, sa module natin, kailangan yung sagutan yung activities doon. Activities na later on, ipopost ko sa platform natin, online platform natin. And of course, ipopost ko din doon yung announcement about our assignment and our activities. So, yun lang guys, yung module 2 natin about the limits of a function in Calculus 1. Okay, so sana may maintindihan kayo sa topic natin na na-discuss. Okay. Thank you and Goodbye.